very first Kenston Inc. Speaker Series of this school year. The Speaker Series events are hosted through our Kenston Inc. organization. And Kenston Inc., I-N-C-K, has a very simple mission: to innovate, nurture, and connect. We aim to provide authentic learning experiences that will encourage career development with a strong focus on 21st century learning skills for college and career readiness. Today's Speaker Series event will focus on the professions and fields of journalism and communication. We have an excellent panel of professionals from the local community who have very extensive job experience and impressive resumes. We would like to thank them for taking time out of their day to be with us today. I'd also like to recognize our Assistant Superintendent, Ms. Katie Poe, is here to join us, and our building principal, Mr. Tom Gabriel. I'd also like to thank Mr. Novak for all of his efforts with his multimedia journalism class, and of course our student moderators today, who I'm going to turn the event over to, junior students Andrew Britton and Jack McDonough.
Hi, as she said before, my name is Andrew Britton. I'm a junior here at the high school. I'm in the multimedia journalism class. That's why we need to do this. I'm also part of WKHR 91.5, their radio station. I'm on campus over at the middle school. We're just going to talk to you guys today about what we have and just asking some questions about their careers. So first, directly to the left, we have Sarah Carnes, who is a radio TV personality. She is every weekday morning from 6 to 10 a.m. on 95.5 The Fish. Sarah and her co-host Lynn offer you encouragement and hopefully a good laugh on your way to work or school, because life brings so many challenges and laughter is the best medicine. Sarah also hosts Spotlight 5 on News 5, highlighting area businesses and organizations. And additionally, she just started her 5th season as the in-game entertainment host for the Cleveland Browns.
Next in our lineup is Jen Kramer. Was until recently the Senior Communications Manager at Destination Cleveland, which is the Convention and Visitors Bureau for Greater Cleveland. Her primary responsibility included managing the organization's relationship with local print and online and broadcast media outlets and communicating positive and informative stories about Cleveland in an overall effort to change the perception of the city among its residents.
Next, third person, we have Kelly Reardon. She is a meteorologist / weather reporter for Cleveland.com and a Plain Dealer. She graduated from Florida Institute of Technology from the College of Engineering with a bachelor's in science degree in meteorology. The last 2 years of college, she volunteered with the National Weather Service in Melbourne, Florida, where she gained invaluable experience she uses daily when forecasting and writing weather stories in plain language. Her path to eventually working in media was definitely unique. She always primarily planned to be a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and she knew to keep her options open. She took a few journalism classes in college, and eventually she ended up in media business and was glad she had that backup. She learns new things every day in her job, especially since her background was heavily focused on science. As a meteorologist with Cleveland.com, now writing weather forecasts and stories reporting on climate change, filming videos daily, and keeping a strong social media presence. It has ended up being the perfect career for her, especially because every day is different and keeping her on her toes.
Next up, we have Matt Rollison. He is the Assistant Dean in the College of Communication and Information at Kent State University. He earned his bachelor's degree in psychology from Kent and his master's in higher education administration from the University of Akron. He worked in crisis intervention and victim advocacy before joining KSU as an academic advisor in 2007, and he has been serving as Assistant Dean since 2013. In this role, he oversees strategic planning, implementation, and assessment of undergraduate student services, including student persistence initiatives, academic advising, curriculum, career exploration and development, and the living learning community that advocates for empowering each student with access to individualized, outcome-based curricula, co-curricular experiences, and services. He has given presentations on various topics, including defining and communicating complementary roles of faculty mentors and academic advisors, removing curricular and policy barriers to student persistence, high-impact student experiences, developing a habit of excellence, and efficient business practices in student service.
Next, we have Robert Stewart, who is the director of E.W. Scripps School of Journalism at Ohio University. Dr. Robert Stewart began teaching broadcast journalism at Ohio University after completing graduate studies at the University of Washington in Seattle. He worked at KOMO-AM radio during graduate school. He received a bachelor's in communication from Hunter College in New York City. He grew up in Thailand during the era of the Vietnam War, graduating from International School, Bangkok in 1975. The same year in Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos fell to the communists. Over the last 3 years, he has taken about 70 Ohio University students to Cambodia as part of the leadership program at OU. And in the front row, to your right, he is accompanied by Dr. Drew McDaniel from the School of Media and Art Studies, a sister school in the Scripps College of Communication that deals with production, video games, and other similar forms of media.
He's standing. Just let me know.
Up next, we have Dr. Jerry Miller from the School of Communication Studies, who serves as the Ohio University speech and debate coach. We have two Kenston students, graduates of Kenston High School, Jill Pastor, who is also studying communications at OU, and we also have Catherine Morey, who is also a Kenston High School graduate studying journalism at OU.
And the last speaker on our panel is Greg Wazinski. He is an inspirational speaker, author, and talk radio contributor. Mr. Wazinski attended Baldwin Wallace University with studies for a degree in speech communications and theater. As a young adult, business opportunities took him on a path to career in the corporate world. However, his passion for communications and radio never left him. In 2005, he became the host of his own talk radio show titled Who Will I Be Tomorrow? Currently, Greg is heard daily as an on-air personality for Sirius XM satellite radio. In addition to traveling the country full-time speaking to various audiences, he also uses the methods of podcasting, video production, blogging, and hard copy books to help inspire others to use their own gifts, passion, and humility. He is married 23 years to his wife, Amy, and is the proud father of Nathan, a senior here at Kenston, and Natalie, a sophomore.
Now we're going to move on to the portion of the program where we ask questions that have been submitted by students. First question, I guess we're kind of directed towards all of you since it's sort of a general question. What sorts of things could students that are interested in your specific field be doing right now as high school students that will look good to a potential employer later? So we can start with this one.
Well, I'm speaking from a talent perspective on side of the business because there's going to be different various roles where we can all contribute. But speaking from that side of it, I think one of the most important things that you can do now as a high school student is practice speaking in front of people. The more opportunities you have to do that, whether it's getting up in front of class and presenting, getting involved in journalism class, whether it's being in a play, anything like that, the more you can practice just talking in front of people, even if it's one or two people, I think those are some of the little things right now you can start doing. Make sure that's something that you would love doing on a daily basis.
I would add to that, I second that, but I also would add writing classes, writing and focusing on your writing. I think, and this may be covered in some of the other questions you guys have asked, but I think our world sometimes are limited to 140 characters, which is great because social media is powerful, but there are other forms of communication too. Writing, you'll be writing emails all the time and, you know, pitching stories or proposing things, and little things like grammar and punctuation, those are still huge factors in making you a credible person. So yeah, writing's important, so anything that you can do, practice the speaking, practice the writing.
I would definitely add a lot of modern journalism is about more than just writing, but doing photography and videography. This student right here is already on his way to doing a one-man show. Cleveland.com, the company I work for, they really want you to be more than a writer. They want you to go out and shoot video to tell a story a different way. They want you to make a gallery of photos. So maybe getting comfortable with a camera or a video camera on top of honing in your writing skills will definitely help you start improving.
I agree completely with Kelly. We challenge our students a lot to challenge themselves, get outside of their comfort zone. So we tend to be drawn to what we're comfortable with and what we're really good at. But we are moving into a world where people are expected to have diversity of knowledge and diversity of skills. classroom opportunities, those experiential learning opportunities that are outside of your comfort zones and outside of what you consider to be your strengths already.
Everything you've heard, I agree with. I'm just going to add another dimension to it. As you're thinking about what you want to perhaps do with your life, if it's in the area of media, let's say it's producing journalistic media, you need to be consuming a lot of journalistic content. You need to be reading great journalism, watching high-end journalistic work, because you want to become familiar with the highest standards. And a classroom is going to probably have you doing a lot of work, but on your own time, you need to be focusing how you consume media and do it strategically. If you want to produce entertainment program, you need to be watching entertainment program. Yes, you'll enjoy it, but you also need to be thinking about it. What made it interesting? What made it funny? What made it appeal to you? Start thinking on that level now. That will serve you really well, especially if you want to go into journalism. The better the work you consume, the better the role models will be, the better your writing will be, just by consuming and reading is the other word for it, reading. Reading high-end work or watching. A lot of our students want to go into television news. I'm not sure how many of them actually watch television news. So if you think you want to go into television news, you need to be watching it, consuming it. I would also mention we have a high school journalism workshop. It's a great way that a high school student can come and try things out for 3.5 days, 4 days on campus, try out broadcasting, try out magazine, try out mobile journalism, strategic communication. Give it a test run when you're in high school, test out the college and test out the subject matter. That's important.
I disagree with everyone. Actually, I'm just kidding. It's just when you go last, they've taken all your answers. No, I actually agree with what everybody has said. And, I would tell you one thing. And from the practice to the watching to the honing your craft, you're a generation that's called to be courageous. And the decisions that you're making to go into media or journalism or communications aren't always going to be the most popular. And as you're honing your craft and as you're watching it, you have to be willing to start from the ground up. Years ago when you got into a job, people expected that if you wanted to be an architect, that the way that you got into architecture was making copies of blueprints and running them from location to location. Sometimes we get caught up in wanting to start at the top. And when we're provided opportunities before we're ready, it's not a good thing. When I first got into public speaking and I first got into radio, I so wanted to reach the pinnacle of what I was doing, but the opportunities weren't there right away. And I'm grateful that they weren't, because there were so many mistakes that I made in the first few years, in so many ways that if I had a wider audience or a vast audience, I probably would have embarrassed myself. And so I'm grateful for the time that it took me to get to where I am today, because it's what you learn along the way. It's who you associate yourself with. It's where you're willing to start to show that, even when I'm doing a job that I don't necessarily want to do and it's not on air or it's not writing, I'm still willing to give it my all. I'm still willing to do it with 100% of my attention and my desire to be able to get to where I am. Because someday, no matter what career you end up in and no matter what you're doing, you will be nurturing someone else that is in the position that you are today. And the things that you learn along the way in doing all the practice and watching and everything else that everyone has discussed is the way that we go about it. But our ability to be courageous, to be humble, and to have the opportunity to start at the ground floor and work your way up is really going to benefit you. And that just begins by seeking out people that are doing where your passion is currently. Try to shadow them. Try to listen to them and watch with them, walk with them. In any way possible. In any business, when someone desires to be successful, they surround themselves with other successful people. So do what you can to surround yourself with people that will help you to desire to be where you need to be.
All right, I'd like to pose a question to Mr. Rollison and Mr. Stewart. What makes someone fit for the field of communications and journalism? I don't know what of you would like to.
I'll go first. I think curiosity is probably the number one personality trait. It's actually very difficult to force someone to be curious. In a way, it's really on you to get in touch with your inner curious self and encourage that self by asking questions. I think sometimes you're in situations, probably in high school this happens a lot, where it may seem a little uncool to ask a question. You're afraid it's a dumb question. Push through that. Push through that. Ask the dumb question.
That was supposed to end in high school.
Yeah, so this will serve you well beyond high school. But I think high school is probably, you're surrounded by one of the tougher crowds, your peers, and you're very concerned about what they think about you. So push through that. I think all of us are curious, but sometimes we tamp that down. And then the second trait is, do you want to share with other people what you've learned? Do you have that, that interest in telling other people the story that was really amazing? I think those two aspects are really important. Everything else we probably can teach you, but those two pieces, it's great if you bring those with you to campus.
Similarly, I would say open-mindedness is one of the key traits for somebody getting into any communication field. Again, we often, as human beings, it's just natural for us to attach ourselves to a particular area of professional work or of academic work and really want to become an expert in a pretty narrowly focused area. But to be in any communication field, you really have to have a wide range of understanding about what's going on in the world. Our world is becoming increasingly global, both on the business side and on the social side, on the economic side. So this is a time where, as a young person, it is actually critical that you understand what is going on around the globe and how different countries are interacting with each other, how different organizations interact with each other, and how you can play a positive role. So open-mindedness, I would say, is one trait, and then another trait would be a genuine interest in affecting positive change. Like Bob was talking about, there's this, there's the intake, the consuming of information, but then there's also the creation and the dissemination. So most people who I know who are really satisfied in their communication work do have that genuine interest in disseminating information in a way that creates respect throughout the community, but also creates and affects positive change for the future. So.
All right, and my next question is going to direct towards Ms. Carnes and also Ms. Bearden. As you guys know, you guys work in the field. Media is changing, the way people get media, the way people see things. But has your job gotten easier, or do you see it becoming more difficult with advanced technology?
I don't mind starting. I think it has gotten more complex, but I think that makes it more exciting. So our roles are a little bit different. My role on the radio, and I apologize, I forget who mentioned it earlier, there's different types of roles. My role is more of an entertainment role. And someone mentioned earlier, it's good to study the people that you love and that you like. That was such great advice. I'm a big fan of Kelly and Ryan, Kelly Ripa, and that fun entertainment style. When you have the morning radio show, or lifestyle topics come to mind and things like that, it's a really great opportunity to engage with social media and all of that kind of fun stuff. So I do think when you add those extra elements that weren't around 10 years ago, that to some people it can be a lot more complex, especially if they don't want anything to do with it, and I have to do this now, and I'm sure Kelly will talk about having to shoot and do all this kind of stuff that you didn't really used to have to do. You had a separate person doing that. But I think it makes it more exciting and more challenging and adds more opportunity for you to learn. I love doing videos. I love adding Snapchat. And I think it's so fun that it allows you to become more engaged with the people you see on TV. I feel like there used to be a wall, and it breaks down that wall where, 10 years ago, I can't imagine during break, one of the newscasters putting a smiley face filter over their face and, doing something like that and showing their personality like we've never seen before. And I think as a viewer, a listener, it allows you to connect with them more. And we like to say in my show, it's doing life together with people. And I think without that added complexity, we wouldn't have that opportunity with the people that are listening or watching.
Definitely agree with the social media aspect. Being on social media has made, I'm not on TV, so I'm on Cleveland.com, people can comment, but having social media accounts, having Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, not only are people seeing as me someone to give them information, they're seeing me as someone to come to for information. They can tweet at me for questions, they can comment on my Instagram if they don't understand a picture I put up. But even advanced technology, they help me explain things easier. A picture is worth 1,000 words, but what if you have a GIF with 30 frames in it? Think of how much more information that can give. For me, in the weather, say I want to show, we've had record temperatures recently because of the position of jet stream. If I just put a flat photo up there, people are like, oh, cool. But if I have a GIF that shows where it's moving, it shows where it's been, it gives an entire different picture of the story. So also through video, I can discuss things in ways that make more sense than a long, really boring, technical, long-form article. So technology has definitely made my life easier, obviously apart from the weather forecasting aspect of that.
Fantastic. This is Kramer. I'd like to ask you, so you deal with the city of Cleveland, this great city. We all know it. How has it affected you to be able to be an advocate? And also, how do you market yourself, get the word out there that Cleveland is?
So thank you for saying Cleveland's great, because it is. But the thing that's cool about my job is that I am passionate about what I do. There were times I worked for a bank, I worked for an advertising agency where I marketed glass block and decking products, which I was kind of passionate about those too. They were really fun, random, regardless of what you may think. But Cleveland is awesome to market, and my role was kind of new because our job, the Visitor Convention Bureau, does kind of what it says. We bring visitors into the city. But what we also have a hard time doing is getting residents to understand that Cleveland is cool, as maybe your parents may have told you. We weren't always awesome. We didn't have championship runs. We didn't have big conventions coming into town. So what's awesome about it is that I'm able to kind of talk to people like you, and that's why I love being part of this, is because I can talk to you and get your insight about what do you need to know about Cleveland, what's missing, what are the gaps in the communication channels, are you on social, what social, how can we get you our information. So what I love about it is that whether it's social media or technology has made my job easy or hard, I think I agree. It's fun. It's awesome. There are all these new channels that we can get to communicate with you. It doesn't make it easy or hard. I mean, it makes it bold. Some of the stuff's easy, some of it's hard. So what I do is, and what we do as an organization, are trying to figure out ways to get in front of the locals, whether it's putting up how many people know the Cleveland script signs that are downtown. Anybody? Raise your hands. Okay. We have 5 of them. So we're trying to get people to really embrace what's going on downtown, and then when they take the pictures of what's going on downtown, share it on social using the hashtag CLE. We're trying to get these little methods out to people and resources so they can showcase their pride. Even if you don't know anything about Cleveland, you should know that Destination Cleveland's a resource for you. We're not just a visitor center. We're a center for information for anyone who wants to explore their hometown. So every day is exciting, and everyone says, what's a typical day like? No day is the same. It's just across the board. But I think that's what makes it so awesome, is that it's different, and the sky's the limit on ways that we can get people to understand what we do. And we know that Clevelanders are passionate, so we just want to give them ways to express that.
We have another question. This question I'm going to ask Mr. Wazinski. How would you go about reaching your audience without the competition in media?
I don't know. How would I? It's a hard question. You know, the beautiful part about technology is that it exists. The hard part about it is now that everyone that owns a recording device or has the opportunity to want to share their gifts, whether qualified or not, or maybe not even qualified, but you know, whether honing a craft, the water gets very muddy very quick. And it's something that in my line of work and trying to inspire people, that I'm trying to make sure that what I'm offering isn't being drowned out by all the other opportunities that people have to listen. So I'm constantly trying to think of ways, how can I connect with my audience? How long do I have to connect with my audience? There's certain articles and blogs that I've wanted to write that I'm very passionate about, but sometimes I'm weary of, do I want to write them because it would be so long? Will I lose my audience before I get to the point? You know, in creating a podcast, what is the perfect time or the perfect amount of time that a podcast should be? Right now, in the one that I'm working on, we settled on 15 minutes because the typical drive to work for someone is 20. I want something that they can play in the car and that they can listen to on the way, and that they won't have to finish when they come back, or they won't decide they won't not put it on because they're not going to finish it in the first place. You know, video-wise, how am I able to take what I do in video and also use that audio so that someone has a choice? You know, if I have the audio separate from the video, so for my recording and what I do for the Sirius XM radio as well as my video, I use a Zoom handheld recorder. The condenser mic on this is actually better than the condenser mic that I have in my studio basement. I'm able to record anywhere that I am on the road. I'm able to take video that I record, using it in the video production to blend it with the video so that I have them separately. But utilizing every tool that I have to be able to put it out in all the different mediums. Whether you're writing a book, you know, if you write a book, you have to make sure that you create something that can also be an ebook. Something that can be played, if it's video, that it can be played across multiple platforms. If you have a website that you're developing to get your message out, it has to look good on a mobile device. They're all things that you need to think about that say, how am I most effectively reaching the people that I want to reach? And even though I'm not necessarily great in one arena or the other, I want to make sure that my message is still getting out to those people and that I'm directing them to where they need to be in order so that I can be heard. So, you know, with all the different mediums and all the different opportunities, there's going to be some that you're very comfortable with, and there's going to be some that you're not so comfortable with. But do your best to learn as much about every one that you can, because as everybody said on the panel, there's writing gifts, there's radio gifts, there's television gifts, and I can tell you that you want to be ready for any opportunity that presents itself. You don't want someone to offer you a job in communications and you go, I can't do that. Because the opportunity for them to offer it to you is rare, and you need to jump on anything that you can.
Awesome, thank you. Ms. Carnes, I would like to ask you how you got started in media and background.
Well, I actually have a very unique background. It's a little bit different. I was a musical theater person, performer, very much on stage for most of my life. And I kind of always knew I wanted to be in entertainment. I never saw myself on the news, anything like that. I'm not that serious of a person. I always thought I love entertainment. And just some different things transpired in my life, and I ended up going into insurance. So crazy. Don't know how that happened. So I spent 15 years as a consultant in the insurance industry, but on the side, I was doing a bunch of work because I loved entertainment so much. So I had an agent in Cleveland for the past 15 years and ended up doing everything from, it was the do-it-yourself person for Lowe's, and did a lot of home improvement videos for them on location, rebuilding bathroom, all kinds of stuff that I found myself in these opportunities. So I'm very much a digger and a connector. I say. I love creating relationships with people, and that has led to so many amazing opportunities. Don't ever put anything out of your mind that that person won't be able to help you down the road later on something. Because it is amazing the people I had met 10 years ago and how 10 years later that's connected to another opportunity. And it was really just like jumping from one thing to another. And it is also amazing how my role in business as a consultant played so well into what I do right now. There are so many parallels into learning just different sides of running a business, kind of just being involved in all those facets that don't sound like fun, but you learn a lot. And like I said, I was in insurance for 15 years and on the side, and then opportunities just arose. And funny, I had done a show in Cleveland at a theater called the Beck Center. I was in Beauty and the Beast like 10 years ago. I don't even know when it was. And someone had seen me, and someone had then worked at Fox Sports Ohio, knew a connection. They were hiring, and they had liked what I did in a show years before that. And that I ended up getting a job at Fox Sports Ohio, worked there for several years. That transpired into something else, So I actually have more of a business background when it comes to, I don't have, the communications or even that hard news experience. I just always love to entertain people. And that is more mainly what I do on the radio, and even the stuff I do for News 5. But I think when you said, how did I get started? When I look back and when people ask me that question, it's always been about, for me, the connections you make. The LinkedIn, the Facebook, the things like that are great, but it's also the people you meet in person too. In this generation, I know you hear that a lot, that the more you can talk to people and just build connections and friendships, the better off things will be, and you never know when those will come in handy. So mine's a little different than probably a lot of people's.
All right. We're going to try to squeeze in one more question before we move on to the next portion of our program in about 5 minutes. But I'm going to ask this question of Mr. Rollison and Mr. Stewart. Since you guys work very closely with college students who are majoring in communication, what are some typical jobs that people would want to get in your programs, majoring in communications?
When they graduate?
Yes.
So, you're probably going to hate my answer, but I think that we do students, especially students who are in high school right now and preparing to enter college, I think we do them a disservice by trying to predict 5 or 10 years out anymore what those jobs are going to be. We put in a lot of effort to talk to professionals in the field, talk to our professional advisory boards, keep in touch with what the government is reporting in terms of job growth across the country and internationally. And those are all really important resources, and the jobs that exist now will continue to exist for years to come. But as far as where the tremendous growth is, a lot of that is in areas related to technology. And as we all know, we cannot predict which technology is going to take off in a lot of cases, and how that technology is going to affect the work that we are doing. So typical jobs currently, are in the fields of journalism, people working for news organizations, but also working in business, as Sarah was talking about with her background as well. That said, we are now moving into a more digital age. So at Kent State University, one thing that we're doing to try and grapple with this time where a lot of different areas related to communication and visual communication and digital communication are integrating with each other is we now have a School of Digital Sciences, which is this place where our faculty can come up with creative ideas for new programs to help students understand how to develop their own comprehensive skill set, their own diverse skill set and knowledge base, and create pathways that when they start as freshmen in college, they might not have been aware of, or they might not have even existed yet, but by the time they're graduating, they have created a path where then they can go on and move into these different areas that have been affected by technology, because they are affected on an annual basis, and it's really impossible to predict 5 to 10 years out what those new jobs and job markets will look like.
I think the one thing we can predict is that you're always going to have to write well in our field. You're going to have to think critically, and whether you're going to become what I would call a capital J journalist, which I think is still going to be a career path for those who are really motivated to be journalists, and that kind of formal storytelling about government, about public affairs. So those opportunities I think are always going to be there. The outlet for your work may change. Those skills are relatively easy to add as you go along. When I started teaching the School of Journalism, it was 1987. And you can't really calculate all the bullet points of technology that's changed sitting where you're sitting. But if you ask your parents, what has changed in the way they consume news since 1987, it's going to be a tremendous amount of change, and devices are becoming more personalized, stories are becoming more selectable, content is more selectable, but somebody has got to prepare that content, and somebody has to do it in a clear, digestible way. So those skills are going to translate regardless of all the technical changes. So I want to actually come back and address something with Cleveland, if I can. Can I pivot?
We have about 1 minute left.
Okay. We just had the voice of Bart Simpson on campus. Anybody a Simpsons fan still? Or your parents probably Simpsons? Anyway, she was on campus. Nancy Cartwright. She had studied at OU for a couple of years, went on to a Hollywood career, and she now has a film out which features Cleveland prominently. Are you familiar with this? It's called In Search of Fellini, and it starts out in Cleveland. And Nancy Cartwright actually grew up in the Dayton area, but it was easier to make the film based in Cleveland because of all the unions and all the technologies and people available in Cleveland. And Cleveland's much cooler than Dayton, after all. So Cleveland features highly. Well, we get to the end of the conversation with a group of students, and Nancy Cartwright and her co-writer said, by the way, we really need you guys, you college kids, to write reviews on Rotten Tomatoes and other social media outlets. We need you to help us market the film. Now, 20 years ago, it would have all been a one-way conversation from the people who were creating, this film, which I recommended. It's R-rated, so you have to be 17 to see it. It's a really interesting film, really beautiful film, shot in Cleveland and in Italy. But they need the audience to engage. That is a completely different reality. And so you have, as you are creating content, you're going to be needing to engage with audiences, and that's just a skill that will help you in your career if you know how to do that and know how to open to it. Right now, you're on the other side of it, so start practicing engaging with the communicators, even at this age.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart. Thanks everybody for answering all of our questions. Right now we're going to have about 10 minutes. You guys can mingle, talk to people up here at the front, those people in the front row, with Mr. Stewart. There's refreshments in the back. I'm just going to have a 10-minute break before we move on to the next portion of this program.
Okay, so this portion of today's program is questions from you guys, the audience, directed towards the panel. And also feel free to ask questions to the folks in the front row. We have some college students and professors from OU. So
when you want to ask a question, raise your hand. We'll select you. Raise your hand. Stand up, introduce yourself, name, grade, and ask whoever you'd like to know. All right.
Hi, I'm Ryan Cohen. I'm a senior. How do online journalists get paid? We had a big discussion about this, and none of us exactly knew. So,
Is this for me?
any of you would like this?
You get
Define
paid, right?
get paid. I get direct deposit. I don't. Right. I'm not necessarily a blogger, so I do work for Cleveland do work for news organizations, so that is, I'm not a freelancer or anything else, but freelancer, you can, send in work to Cleveland.com even if you don't actually work for that organization, and they will actually, talk to you about how much you get paid per article that you send in. But I'm a salaried reporter, so not a blogger.
Some of it might depend on your audience as well, that if you can gain sponsors. This is the first radio show that I did in 2005. I bought airtime on AM radio and then went out and sought sponsors to do commercial spots. So not only did it pay for the slot that I purchased, but I also made additional income by running more spots than what I needed. And from a blogging standpoint, or if there's an issue or a certain direction that you're passionate about, there may be publishers, there may be companies, there may be organizations, that would pay you for that time. So I think that there's a couple different routes, the actual being published. And somebody asked me during the break about writing books. And for me, as a public speaker, I've chosen to go the route of self-publishing because I have an attentive audience that is able to purchase my product when I'm in front of them. So financially, it's a better opportunity for me to self-publish than if I took a couple years worth of work and somebody shelved the project. That doesn't mean that it's the only way to go, but I think that we're in a time where you have the opportunity to be financially rewarded for your work in different ways. And I think that Cleveland.com and online sources will probably pay you for your work. And if they're not paying, then go create the opportunity yourself.
Any other questions?
Ask me questions. Be wondering about the field about journalism in general. Before you say it up, yes. What different types of mediums do you use to reach different audiences? Like for older people, what mediums do you use for younger people?
All the rights.
Most words are coming back.
They are.
I think it won't come as a big shock, what I'm going to say, but older folks tend to watch the nightly news. Younger folks tend not to watch the nightly news, but NBC, CBS, CNN, all those organizations are putting all those stories through their apps so that people who would prefer to consume that same content through the app, they don't have to produce necessarily a different story. They might frame it a little differently or chop it up in a little bit different pieces. But, I'm watching the Vietnam series right now on PBS. I can either watch it at 8 p.m. on WUB, or they'll rebroadcast it at 10 p.m. or at 1 a.m. Or I can just pull out my phone and watch the broadcast version or the explicit language version. So I have a lot more choice. I'm an old guy in a way, but I also work to consume media in ways that my students do, just because I like some of those ways better than waiting for 8 p.m. for the show to start.
I can add to that. So from a Destination Cleveland perspective, we're trying to get the word out about Cleveland and what's going on, the revitalization that's occurring downtown. And we target millennials. That's really our sweet spot because we know that those are going to be the folks that are going to travel, whether they're traveling from Pittsburgh or they're traveling from Bainbridge, they're going to come downtown. They're open to experiencing new things. That said, we do have the older folks too, who they are reading things like the Cleveland Jewish News. They're reading things like the Plain Dealer print. People still get newspapers. I get it. So we're pitching those publications, but we're also using social media. We were talking during the break too about, and we mentioned it up here too. It's not just our content that we're pushing out on social. If you use the hashtag this is CLE. We use the pictures that you are taking of you experiencing your time in Cleveland. We use those in our print publications. So we use those as ads. We use a lot on digital, when you're just going through email or things like that. And the ads you're seeing the ads in the sidebars and things like that. We're producing videos and we're sending them digitally. A lot of our advertising is through social, is through digital, but we are doing a lot in print too. And we're keeping our website updated so that when we are sending things out, we're sending them back to the website so people can experience more. So it's all these things. There are many different aspects. They all have to be connected, and updated. And what's great about, again, going back to has technology made it harder, it's just made it more expansive. It's just, there are so many more options now. So it just depends who you're targeting, depends who you're going after. And I still do watch the news. I kind of had to for a long time because that was my job to pitch these stories to the writers about and the reporters about what's going on, why should they care, and what should they tell you to care about. So there are just a lot of different ways that it can happen, from marketing to PR to social and beyond.
And can I just add one thing to that, because it reminded me when you said about the pictures you use with the hashtag This Is Cleveland. That's another example of what I think one of the biggest things is engaging with your audience and having them involved. I can give you an example from our radio station. We just started having our listeners intro traffic. So when they call and ask us a question, or they're answering the stump day question of the day, well, hey, while you have them on the line, where are you from? Oh, I'm from Brecksville. Okay, say this is Jim from Brecksville, and here's your fish traffic. We save those. We have a ton of them now, and it's really cool. Oh my gosh, that was me. That was, you're engaging and you're making a part. You watch the morning news, you'll see Twitter's a part of it. You'll see, what are people saying on Twitter about this? This is saying this, this is saying this. That's how we're using the mediums out there. It's really about community. I think you're seeing community in media more than you ever have before. And it's not just about, I think we're all still learning how to use it effectively. It's not about just going on Facebook Live. Okay, what do? This is the cool thing to do. We're on Facebook Live. How do you use that effectively and involve people in the right way? We're still, I think, kind of learning how those work. But I think the more you can engage people, make them a part of what you're doing, you're doing better.
And Nate, we're at a point in technology where even the senior generation now they're using iPhones. They're up to date. Whether the kids are helping them or they look crazy awkward in public trying to use it, they're using them. And at the end of the day, I would think that some of it boils down to, and the panel could even discuss this, that different generations are going to have longer attention spans and shorter attention spans. And so I think the way that you present the message, regardless of the medium, is going to be how long are you going to be able to keep your audience's attention? Are they used to listening to a half-hour program or watching the nightly news for an hour to get a vast range of information? Or do they want a 1-minute segment that you're going to tell me what I need to do, or I only want to see the hashtag This Is CLE because I want to see what other people are integrating, or I want to listen to the fish because I got to record it, so I'm telling all my friends to listen to. But they're listening during the segments, So I think attention span plays into that as well as the medium.
Answer from our
Well, I actually have a question for the students, either you guys or the students. And I work on enrollment matters for Dr. Stewart, Dr. McDaniel, Dr. Miller. And we're always interested in students/parents, your parents, the buying committee, perception. Now, you see a lot of careers up here and a lot of various occupations. And there are a lot that you're not aware of and that your parents are not aware of. Now, you guys are obviously interested in this because you're here. What do your parents think about? See, he's laughing already. I know where he's going with it. What do your parents think about career possibilities in these fields?
I can answer that.
Movies and things like that he does, and he's got plenty of graduates, seems pretty abstract to parents.
Absolutely. Everyone here pretty much knows I have a YouTube channel that I post videos on, and my parents constantly tell me, that's not going to get you anywhere. You're not going to be able to make a career out of that. But I think it's a stepping stone, and I think it's a way to just at least create something and get my foot in the door. But as far as
so you're standing
journalism as a whole, I think it's a strong option for many of us, especially with this much interest.
Could anyone else add to what?
I was also going to add to that. My mom, we talked about the future a lot, because I'm a junior in high school. We're kind of moving on into college. What my plan is going to be after that. I'm kind of split between two fields right now, journalism being one and possibly law enforcement being the other. So she's kind of she's a parent. She kind of has to say this, but she says, "I'm supportive of you no matter which way you go." So, I don't know how 100%, truthful that is, but she does that. But I just want to say that I really haven't heard anything negative or anything that's saying like, no, maybe you shouldn't do this, maybe you should do something else. Just kind of letting me have my own choice, but adding her input along the way. Like, okay, if you're thinking about law enforcement, these schools or these programs will help you looking on your resume, or if you're thinking about journalism, here's some good schools that have great journalism programs, things like that. So she's kind of like adding things to like my decisions, so to speak. But yeah,
that's very open-minded, because a lot of the times the parents, they have biases based on what their neighbors have told them, and these people would tell you the exact opposite because they're in that field. So that, I just want to remind you students to do that before you say ixnay. Open up your mind and research a little bit.
Well, I can answer it as a parent in the community that my son is going to major in film acting. And when I tell other parents that, they all ask me, so what's his fallback? And I don't believe you do anything in life to have a fallback. I believe that if you're going to do it, put your heart and soul into it and let people see your heart and soul in your work. I mean, if you look around the room, if you're in journalism or communications, you're responsible to every person in this room, because what you're reporting or what you're giving of yourself in your art or your craft, you're influencing them. You're helping them shape them. You're shaping their children. And so if you go into it as a parent, I would tell you, don't come home and tell me that you tried it and it kind of didn't work out. I want to know that you went and you gave it everything that you had. And in 10 years from now, in a world that is suffering from communication and speaking abilities and sharing our emotions and feelings, in 10 years from now, by doing this and being able to express yourself, you're going to have a leg up on the world in any job that you do. And those are the things that employers are going to be looking for and that they're going to want. But don't go home and tell your parents that, yeah, Mr. Wazinski said I should do this, so I don't care what you say. Because my phone number's in the directory, Adam.
Andrew, go ahead.
So I just wanted to chime in on Nate's question, because I think it's really important, and I think we've heard a lot of good and different perspectives. But the one piece that I don't think we've addressed yet that is really critical is the access we have to data. And there was another question about how do people make money with online journalism. Well, data is this just exploding area that is directly related to what we do. Bob's been talking about the importance of being information literate. Well, it's also important to be data literate. So to Nate's question, what mediums do you use? There is an endless supply of data out there. Some of it is publicly accessible. Some of it you have to purchase, whether it be from Google or a social media outlet. But it exists. What we have right now is a shortage of people who are able and willing and have the tools necessary to collect that data, to analyze it, and to communicate it in ways to other communication professionals that then they can use it and then they can target the right kind of audiences. We know that people in this particular region of the world, in this age group, are going to respond better to this medium. We know that this other group of people are going to respond better to this medium. So the importance of data moving forward to make these kinds of decisions, to know how to target certain groups of people with our messaging is incredibly important. So I just wanted to add that.
So Andrew, I would encourage you to check out Will Cooper, who's one of our grads. He's on Vice. He's a journalist on Vice. His parents are both lieutenants on the Cleveland Police Force. So I think he could explain how to have it both ways. But I think someday he wants to do a story about them, because they are really impressive law enforcement, great parents, great role models, and now he's able to take a lot of the lessons he's learned from them into journalism. And a very cool medium. If you're not familiar with Vice, I would definitely check it out.
Any other questions?
All right, so I know that none of you specialize in sports journalism, but I think there's some of us here that maybe don't want to become a regular capital J journalist. Some of us want to go to sports journalism or communication media. So is there any difference in path that you need to take in order to get to that platform, or is it just kind of the same path?
Well, what I said earlier about consume the kind of content that you want to create, that's the same for you, only you would be consuming sports journalism content. But I would encourage you not just to be a fan of a certain team and think that way, but you need to be able to think about sport in a broader sense. I mean, unless you have your head in the sand, you know that sport right now is at the center of the political discussion. That is a political discussion, but there is a sport element to it as well. So I think, when you say sport, you need to be thinking much broader than X's and O's. X's and O's are important, but that is just a piece of sport. There's the business dimension of sport. You can't run away from that. I mean, at OU we have, at least I'm told, the top sports administration program in the country. Journalism students who want to cover sports are advised to take courses in sports administration, even do a minor in it, and work on the ESPN broadcast. That's a great combination. You're learning how to cover sports, but you're also learning the business side of sports. So in a way, the advice is exactly the same, but it's just different details.
Well, if we have no more questions, I'd like to ask one for the whole panel. Anybody else would like to add? But a lot of us, since we're thinking about schools and what we're going to do when it becomes time, a lot of people look for internships and things like that. It would be a good way. I know you guys are all going through the process of going to colleges and doing things like that to better your career and work towards one. But what would be a good way to go about getting internships if possible? Anywhere you can.
I'll start because what an opportunity today with all of these young, bright minds in here. I hope that you all get really comfortable just taking advantage of opportunities like today. And that doesn't just mean sticking around for a few minutes and having conversations with everybody up here and everybody over here in the front row and with each other to digest and talk about the conversation today. But also make sure that you're getting contact information from everybody who is here today, and make sure that you are following up with everybody who has made some comment or you think is working in some area that somehow, some way is potentially related to your long-term goals and your long-term path. There are opportunities on a daily basis for you. Think about when you have conversations at home with your parents, and when they say something like, "Oh, I have a friend who works for this business or works in this organization. I think you might be interested in having a conversation with them." Don't tune your parents out when they're making offers like that. The best thing you can do is to make it an important part of your daily life, to go out of your way to establish that network and to keep growing it and to keep growing it. Somebody said it earlier, it might have been Sarah, I think, who said you have no idea how somebody in this room today could potentially come back and help you years down the road. And that's true of any day in your life. So just make it a point. Get in the habit of challenging yourself to step up and have conversations with people in the moment, but also understand how to connect with them after the moment.
And maintain that. It's not just about that initial email, but it's also connecting. You said 10 years later, you were connected with people. And it doesn't have to be, you figure it out, right? You're not emailing every week. Hey, you got my email. People are busy. But every couple of months, you're like, hey, I saw this article about something, and it harkens back to what we talked about and things. So I think that's one element. So the maintenance is huge. But also, too, as you're going into school, check your teachers in school, your parents, your professors in college, your teachers here, your alumni association. There are different things that you wouldn't even think about on college campuses that will connect you to alumni. Ooh, I went to John Carroll. Anytime you're like, hey, I'm so and so, I went to John Carroll. They're like, yes, we'll have coffee. How about tomorrow? It won't happen all the time like that, but people are so willing. It's outside of John Carroll. I think this community, whether you go away to school or not, but Cleveland is such a small community and so genuinely willing to help people that if you're interested, you're like, you know what, I really am interested in maybe being a broadcaster, being on TV and being a news anchor. Call the BPYC. Call them and say, I'm a student at Kenston. I'm really interested. Do you have an opportunity for me to shadow for a couple days? They may say no. They may say it's busy or whatever. But probably they're going to say yes, and they'll work with you to do it. So don't step outside your comfort zone. Ask the questions, and utilize people, we just had a conversation up here. I just met her today, and she's already given me a contact name for a story that I can pitch. It's just crazy. Like, people are genuinely willing to help you.
That's a true story. About 10, 15 years ago, I was watching Robin Swoboda, who back in the day was a really big news personality here in Cleveland, left her. And I just was like, I want to be on that show. She had a show called That's Life. It looked super fun. They just sat and chatted at the little bar stool. I was like, I want to be on the show. I emailed the producer. She emailed me back. I was on the show the next week talking to Robin Swoboda. And now Robin and I are friends years later. But that is so true. Don't think they'll ever email me back. Or they'll use.
And she was the original host of the show that you do.
And now I took her job. Yeah. She was the original host of what I do now. Yeah. So that's so true. I'm glad you said that.
And I would say that as you look for these opportunities to intern or jobs, one thing that I would really invite you, and this is no matter what field you choose, why? Why do you want to do what you do, and why are you different? When you have the opportunity to be in front of somebody who has an opportunity that might be for you or might better you in your advancement, you have about 30 seconds to explain why you're different than everybody else that's going to contact them. What is it about your passion? What is it about your work ethic? What is it about their organization that you did the research on that you know ever before they tell you? And so that as you look for all these internship opportunities and future job opportunities and even the schools that you're going to attend, why are you different than the 100 other people that are going to want the same opportunity that you want? And if you can passionately convey that within 15 or 30 seconds and stand out because you knew more than the other person, you showed more personality, and you're willing to do what it takes to get to what they need accomplished, those opportunities are going to come simply because you did your homework and you were willing to put yourself on the line.
I would also add something to the comment about KYC. I would say ask for Bobcat to talk to, or ask for somebody from Kenston. A school that you might be thinking about. See if there's someone who works at that station who went to one of our schools, and talk to them, not just about the experience where they're working, but what was it like in school. I think you would easily find graduates of our program. I would say what's really important to you for the internship question is go to a school, and I know our program, there are other programs too, but I know our school really well. You want to go to a school where you can jump in the deep end immediately as a freshman and start cranking out content, whether it's entertainment media and media arts and studies, whether it's speech and debate in communication studies, whether it's working at the student newspaper or on one of our 15 or so media platforms, which are just about all available to students. I just brought a copy of this magazine. There are freshmen getting bylines in this kind of magazine at OU. That sets you up for internships. And when you're a freshman and you get involved, whether it's a highlight show about high school football called Gridiron Glory, you're going to be working with upperclassmen who have had internships, and they're going to tell you what their internships were like. They're going to graduate before you, and they're going to go out to work in the industry, and you will have worked with them, these connections. You might not realize how important it is, but you're going to actually make connections with your fellow media producers in college. Some of you may end up working together with people in this room for 10, 20, 30 years because of a connection you may even hear. So those connections start much, much earlier than you realize. And it's not always with the people with the ties on. I mean, some of you have ties on, so maybe that's not true. But, look around you and look at who you like to produce content with. One of my takeaways from today is I know somebody now at Kenston who has his own YouTube channel. I know that now. That's a good thing.
Subscribe.
I'll subscribe to you if you subscribe to us. Okay,
All right, we'd like to thank our panels for coming today. Everybody taking time out of their day to come speak to us. We really appreciate it. Just to talk to people that are really in the field that experience these things and go through the process of becoming going to where they are today. We have some gift bags for you also. I'd like to thank all of our students for coming and taking time to learn about your career. After this, we're going to report to Block 38.